If you're comfortable, you're not paying attention. That's the first truth I had to learn. Not from a book, not from a mentor. From pain, from fists, from silence. Growing up in South Africa, I learned very early that being different wasn't interesting. It was dangerous. I wasn't like the other kids. I didn't fit. I didn't fake it. While they memorized sports stats and pop lyrics, I read encyclopedias. I built circuits. I imagined cities on Mars. That made me a target. I got beaten so hard I couldn't breathe. Broken nose, broken ribs, broken understanding of why comfort was ever seen as safe. You see, pain teaches you fast. Every bruise rewires your expectations. I stopped expecting kindness. I started expecting impact. And when you start expecting impact, you stop looking for shelter. You build armor instead. That armor wasn't made of confidence. It was made of questions. Why do people follow rules that make them smaller? Why is it better to be liked than to be honest? Why is no one angry at how average everything is? My father wasn't a comfort either. He wasn't a refuge. He was a system, cold, sharp, absolute. He told me I was broken, that I'd never be loved, that I thought too much, that the world didn't want people like me. And for a while, I believed him. That's the scariest kind of comfort, the one that tells you you're nothing, and you settle into it because it's familiar. Familiar pain becomes your baseline, and that's how mediocrity wins, by making you think it's the ceiling. But some part of me didn't shut off. Some part of me said no. No, I won't die here. No, I won't let this be it. I didn't know where to go, but I knew I had to leave. I knew I had to bet on something beyond what everyone else accepted. At 17, I left South Africa alone. No support, no certainty, just a one-way ticket and a refusal to surrender. That wasn't courage. That was refusal. A rebellion against the soft lie that says comfort is the goal. People love to say, find your passion. But passion is noisy. Purpose is quiet. Mine whispered through every sleepless night on a cold floor, through every shower at the YMCA, through every beanbag I slept on at the office because I couldn't afford rent. I didn't have a plan. I had a question. What if comfort is the enemy? What if ease is a trap? What if everything you've been told to seek is actually what's keeping you small? The people around me were playing it safe, playing it smart, building careers, not missions. They thought I was reckless. I thought they were sleepwalking. Because I didn't want a life that looked good on paper. I wanted to solve problems that made the paper irrelevant. And that meant being willing to bleed, to fail, to be alone. Discomfort didn't scare me. Comfort did. Because I saw what comfort does to people. It turns minds into machines. It turns questions into silence. It turns brilliance into routine. I watched it flatten people with potential so vast they could have bent industries. But they chose the couch, chose the paycheck, chose the weekend. And once you choose that enough times, it becomes who you are. Not because it's true, but because you never fought for anything different. I didn't want to be impressive. I wanted to be useful. And sometimes, that means being willing to look insane. To be the one still building while everyone else is winding down. To be the one sleeping at the factory because that's where the future is being shaped. That war started early, not against people, but against the gravitational pull of comfort. It's strong. It tells you to slow down, to blend in, to compromise. And every time I felt it pulling at me, I reminded myself, rockets don't launch from the couch, and neither will you. They don't warn you that society is built to reward obedience and punish truth. They just dress it up and call it normal. From the moment you're born, the machine starts shaping you, softly, politely, strategically. Sit still. Memorize this. Don't ask that. Follow the schedule. Follow the rules. Follow the rest. They call it education. I call it early-stage compliance conditioning. You learn quickly that the system doesn't want creators. It wants replicators. People who echo what they're told without disrupting the flow. If you challenge the curriculum, you're difficult. If you question authority, you're disrespectful. If you finish first, They tell you to wait for everyone else. And somewhere between coloring inside the lines and raising your hand for permission to use your own voice, you begin to equate obedience with safety. That's the comfort lie. They feed it to you early and often. And the more you accept it, the easier you are to make it. They'll tell you you're doing well if you stay in your lane. Show up. Don't shake things. Don't think too far outside the frameworks. That's not encouragement. That's containment. And the most dangerous part? It works. Because they don't cage your body. They cage your potential. I've watched people far more brilliant than me get lost in roles they never chose, living scripts they never wrote, just because the world applauded them for being reliable. Not for being great, just for being predictable. And after enough applause, mediocrity doesn't feel like a prison anymore. It feels like a paycheck. It feels like a weekend. It feels like a life. But it's not. It's maintenance. Comfort is the system's way of sedating the exceptional. It makes you forget you were ever hungry. It teaches you to call average realistic. And when someone dares to want more, to build more, to be more, they're labeled as dangerous. Not because they are, but because they remind others of what they gave up. I've seen it in business. The safer the environment, the less innovation happens. The more rules, the fewer questions. The more stability, the more stagnation. People call it structure. But if your structure can't adapt, it's not strong. It's already obsolete. And still, we reward it. We hand out titles, promotions, retirement plans, all wrapped in praise for doing things the right way. But what if the right way is wrong now? What if the blueprint is outdated and everyone's just too comfortable to admit it? Most people don't want to build a life. They want to download one. A degree, a job, a mortgage, a couple vacations, then fade. And the system rewards that. It calls it responsible. It calls it success. But I call it slow surrender. Because the longer you sit in comfort, the more you shrink. Your dreams become decor. Your questions become noise. Your fire turns to a flicker that only burns when no one's watching. And then one day, you wake up and realize, the life you built isn't yours, it's theirs. I've never been impressed by perfect resumes. I've never trusted people who fit in too well, because greatness leaves scars. And people who've done something real never look polished. They look tired. They look lit from the inside. They look like they've wrestled something that mattered. The system doesn't reward that. It can't, because those people are harder to control. So it drowns them in comfort, gives them just enough to settle, just enough to stop. And once they stop, the machine moves on. That's how mediocrity multiplies, not through failure, but through quiet resignation. I've never feared failing. I've feared becoming okay with things I know are wrong. I've feared waking up one day and realizing I've adapted so well to the system, I forgot how to disrupt it. That's the real death. Not when your heart stops, but when your ambition does. When your voice gets quiet. When your questions disappear. When comfort convinces you that dreaming big is childish. But it's not. It's necessary. Because every major advancement in history came from someone who chose discomfort over approval. And if you're not choosing that, someone else is choosing your life for you. I refuse to live a life that fits inside a form. I'd rather be misunderstood chasing the extraordinary than celebrated for maintaining the expected. Comfort may feel like safety, but it's often the most decorated disguise mediocrity wears. So next time the world applauds you for being easy to manage, ask yourself, is this success or sedation? Most people don't think. They remember. That's the real problem. What they call logic is usually just repetition dressed up as reasoning. Analogy, not analysis. Tradition, not truth. That's how people end up defending systems they never built, following paths they never questioned, and calling that safety. But I was never interested in what people thought worked. I was obsessed with what was real. That's where first principles come in. Not opinions, not assumptions. Just physics, facts, laws that don't care how long something's been done a certain way. They only care whether it actually works. People call it radical. I call it basic. If the foundation isn't real, everything you build on top is a fantasy. Most industries are built on assumptions that were never challenged. That's why rockets were still being designed like Cold War missiles in the 2000s. That's why nobody thought it was possible to land and reuse them. Because comfort creates consensus, and consensus kills questions. I've been told all my life that I overthink. But what they meant was, you don't agree fast enough. Because when you strip something to its atomic truth, it gets uncomfortable. Suddenly, the easy story falls apart. The shortcuts vanish. The inherited wisdom sounds hollow. And what you're left with is the real equation. The one nobody wants to solve, because it requires burning what they've built. That's what first principles demand. You can't keep the old frame. You have to dismantle it. And most people would rather decorate the prison than escape it. I've seen it in every industry. In aerospace, in automotive, in AI. People protecting what was instead of building what could be. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they fear discomfort. And the first principle mindset is allergic to comfort. It's not about being smart. It's about being more honest, brutally honest, about what works, what doesn't, and what's just inertia, rest of insight. When I started SpaceX, people thought I was joking. You can't compete with NASA. You can't build rockets that land. You can't use private money to explore space. But I wasn't trying. I was trying to build from zero. I didn't care how they did it. I cared whether it made sense now. When I looked at the math, the supply chains, the materials, the launch protocols, it didn't. So we tore it down, line by line, bolt by bolt, not to be disruptive, but to be accurate. Comfort told them, it's too hard. First principles told me, you're doing it wrong. And I trusted the second voice more. The same with Tesla. People said the auto industry was too regulated, too entrenched, that no startup could survive, but cars were inefficient, slow to evolve, full of middlemen. So I asked, what's actually necessary to move a person from A to B? What if we remove the dealerships? What if we rethink battery systems? What if we stop asking what's profitable and start asking what's possible? The answers weren't comfortable. They were complex, expensive, unforgiving. But they were true. And truth, once you see it, won't let you go back to comfort. It haunts you. It follows you. Until you either build from it or break under the weight of ignoring it. First principles don't make life easier. They make it clearer. But clarity is a threat to systems built on confusion. That's why so many people avoid it. They'd rather call their habits wisdom, their bias, experience, their fear, caution. But you can't build the future on fear, and you sure as hell can't innovate from comfort. So, yes, I question everything. Because I'm not building a career. I'm building reality. And if the truth demands that I burn down what came before, then give me the match. Because comfort never built a rocket. Comfort never scaled intelligence. Comfort never asked, what if the entire premise is wrong? First principles did, and they always will. Discomfort doesn't mean something's wrong. It usually means you're exactly where you need to be. But no one teaches you that. They teach you to flinch, to escape, to run toward relief the moment something feels unfamiliar. But relief is not progress. It's sedation. And sedation is how the world keeps brilliant people small. I never trusted ease, not because I wanted to suffer, but because every moment of growth in my life came wrapped in friction. The first time I coded something real, I was 12. I didn't know what I was doing. I was frustrated, alone, but the discomfort sharpened me. It forced me to pay attention, to fail forward, to fight for each function until it worked. That pain became clarity. Later, when I left South Africa with no friends, no certainty, and a few dollars in my pocket, it wasn't some heroic leap. It was pain management. I knew staying would rot me. That's the first lesson discomfort teaches you. When it hurts to stay, you know it's time to go. Every pivot in my life came from pain. Zip2 failing taught me speed. PayPal battles taught me leverage. Tesla nearly going bankrupt taught me sacrifice. SpaceX rockets exploding taught me obsession. Neuralink setbacks taught me patience. These weren't just lessons, they were coordinates. Pain showed me where I still had blind spots, where I still had ego, where I still had room to become something sharper, something real. But most people never stay in discomfort long enough to learn anything from it. They touch the heat and recoil, but I leaned into it. I wanted to know what the heat was hiding. And the truth is, most of the things worth doing live behind a door labeled, "This is going to hurt." But that pain isn't the enemy. It's the invitation. Discomfort is a signal, a pulse, a compass. And if you follow it, not blindly but with awareness, it doesn't break you. It builds you. I didn't sleep on factory floors to prove anything. I did it because that's where the pressure was highest, and pressure reveals flaws faster than praise ever will. People still ask why I work like I do. They think I enjoy chaos, but I don't. I respect what chaos reveals, because when everything's burning, you find out what actually matters. You see what still functions, what breaks, what bends but doesn't snap, and what was just noise the whole time. Discomfort doesn't lie. It won't flatter you. It won't coddle you. But it will show you the truth. And if you can sit with that truth, no matter how raw, you become unshakable. Not perfect, not fearless, just honest. And that honesty becomes your edge. In a world that keeps rewarding predictability, discomfort is how you stay awake. You start seeing the cracks, the waste, the games, and you start asking questions that make comfort impossible. That's the price of awareness. Once you feel real pressure, fake pressure stops working on you. You stop chasing validation. Stop mistaking applause for alignment. You stop needing to be told you're doing okay, because now you know when you're not. That internal compass gets sharper with every burn, and if you keep following it, it doesn't just lead you to results. It leads you to yourself. Because comfort will let you sleepwalk for decades, but discomfort wakes you up. That's why I trust it. That's why I follow it. Not because it feels good, but because it feels real. And I'd rather be hurting in the right direction than smiling in the wrong one. We've glamorized comfort to the point where people think struggle means failure, where doing hard things is seen as toxic, where ambition sounds like arrogance. That's not progress. That's collapse. I've watched society slowly convert discomfort into taboo. It starts young. We tell kids to be quiet instead of curious. We praise politeness over persistence. We hand out trophies for showing up and wonder why they stop showing up when things get hard. And when they grow up, they chase applause instead of growth. That's not parenting. That's programming. And the program is simple. Be comfortable, be liked, be easy to manage. It's how we ended up in a world where people post more than they build, where likes are louder than results, where dreams are filtered for aesthetic instead of risk. Comfort has become a god, but it's a false god, because it rewards the appearance of success, not the substance. I've seen brilliant minds shrink themselves just to fit the feed. I've watched creators dilute their voice to protect brand deals. I've seen entire companies avoid real innovation because it might offend shareholders. And worst of all, we celebrate it. We call it strategy. We call it market fit. We call it realistic. But it's not. It's fear. Decorated, rationalized, monetized, fear of rejection, fear of friction, fear of being seen before you're ready. But if you wait until you're comfortable to be bold, you'll wait forever. Ambition doesn't wait. It doesn't apologize. And it sure as hell doesn't ask for permission. But we've trained a generation to believe it should. That passion must be palatable. That excellence should be easy to digest. So we get soft success, smooth stories, mediocre products that offend no one and inspire no one. I don't blame individuals. I blame the cult, the culture that trades sharpness for stability. That turns the extraordinary into the algorithmic. That confuses fitting in with moving forward. But real progress isn't polite. It's disruptive. And it usually starts with someone willing to be misunderstood. Comfort avoids that. Comfort wants everyone in the middle. Quiet, pleasant, predictable. But the middle never made history. It just marketed it. Every meaningful invention, revolution, or idea that moved us forward came from people who were willing to walk alone, to stand in discomfort long enough to learn what it was trying to say, to challenge a system that was begging to be rethought. And not because they were fearless, but because they were honest enough to admit that the status quo wasn't working, and ambitious enough to build what should have existed all along. That kind of ambition is dying, not because we don't have the talent, but because we keep teaching people to hide it, to mask it, to delay it until it's convenient. But there's no convenient time to become who you're meant to be. There's just now, and now is always inconvenient. That's why most people settle. Not because they don't dream, but because they never built the muscle to hold their dream when it got heavy. But comfort won't hold it for you. It'll offer you substitutes, distractions, dopamine, but never the real thing. The real thing comes wrapped in silence, in isolation, in people not getting it until you've already done it. So if you want to live loud, you have to risk being quiet first. If you want to lead, you have to risk walking alone. And if you want to build something real, you have to stop worshiping comfort and start earning your scars. I don't believe in balance. I believe in urgency. And most people confuse balance with safety, when what they're really doing is making peace with being stuck. That's the real trap. You don't wake up miserable. You wake up fine. You're not falling apart. You're just not moving. And one day you realize you haven't been tired. You've been underused. Your ambition didn't die. It atrophied, slowly, silently, in a life that looked good enough to stop questioning. That's how comfort wins. Not in explosions, in quiet surrenders. So if you want to build something real, stop negotiating with the part of you that wants to be liked. Stop waiting for the world to feel ready for who you really are. It won't. It never does. The world makes space for the version of you that refuses to shrink. That version isn't found. It's forged. In discomfort. In risk. In the decision to keep going when logic says quit. That's what people call obsession. I call it alignment. I don't sleep on factory floors because I'm a workaholic. I do it because that's where the future is being built. And the future doesn't show up on your calendar. It shows up in your discomfort, in your misfit ideas, in the version of you that still believes you're here to do something impossible. But belief means nothing without behavior. So, burn the couch. Burn the backup plan. Burn the story that told you more is selfish, different is dangerous, and too much is a flaw. It's not. It's a signal that you're still alive, that you still care, that you're not done yet. I don't care if the world claps. I care if the mission moves, because movement builds momentum, and momentum rewrites permission. And if you're still sitting, still waiting, still asking for signs, this is it. This is the moment. Not because I said so, but because you're done pretending it's not time. You already know what you need to do. You've always known. Now prove it. Burn the couch. There's nothing for you there.